Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Merlin, Season 3, Episode 8, Love in the Time of Dragons. Episode in a nutshell is a brief summary of what happened in the episode. So, in this episode, we first see an older woman entering Camelot into an older abandoned house, and she opens a box and a creature comes out that she greets. We then hear from Uther that there are reports of people with previously thought incurable diseases suddenly being cured, and Gaius is sent to investigate. Upon investigating, he returns to Uther and claims that no magic was involved, which makes Merlin suspicious because clearly magic was involved. We then have Gaius sneaking out at night, and Merlin follows him, and that leads them to Alice, who Gaius greets with a hug at the door, and Merlin goes back to the castle. We then have basically Gaius revealing that Alice is a healer. She uses her magic for healing, and that he helped her escape during the purge so that she wouldn't be purged, and now she has come back, but she's a very good person. He invites her to live with them, and as she's living with them, we find out that the Manticore has plans for Uther, and Gaius is important to those. We then see her trying to basically add Manticore poison into Gaius's medicine, which she fails the first time because Merlin interrupts and she drops the potion. The second time, however, she does succeed, and so Gaius takes the potion to Uther, who then falls ill, poisoned by the Manticore. And in order to protect Gaius, Merlin, who has long suspected Alice because he did see the Manticore before, informs Arthur that he knows who had done it and that it was Alice, and Alice is arrested. However, while she's in the holding cell, Merlin sees her have an episode where her eyes go black, which is a sign of Manticore poisoning, and so he realizes that it is in fact not necessarily Alice, but the Manticore itself who's had these plans, and she is being used by the Manticore. This then leads to him and Gaius killing the Manticore, which reverses the poison in both Alice and Uther. However, Uther, even though Alice was under the influence, will not forgive her for using magic, and so still sentences her to death. Gaius and her have a moment in the cell where they talk about how, they've never forgotten each other, they still love each other. She understands that he couldn't go with her back then because he had to stay behind to protect her, and then we see Gaius return to his rooms, and then the alarm bells go off that a prisoner has escaped, which, of course, Merlin points out wouldn't have had anything to do with him, and they then end the episode happily. I was going to say ever after, but that's not really the case. So, now that we have been reminded about what happened in the episode, we'll now rank the episode on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. And on our mostly objective ranking list, we have a single episode supporting character introduction, which of course is Alice, who is Gaius's old flame, his ex-fiancée, whom he saved from the purge, who has come back under the influence of the Manticore, and then whom he saves again by allowing her to escape from the prisons and therefore not die. Then we have a multi-episode supporting character introduction, which I feel is a very, very, very minor character, but he is in 2 episodes, so it counts. That is Evoric, who is the patient of Alice's that Gaius goes to question, who previously he had diagnosed with an incurable disease. And that brings us to 3 points, as the single episode was worth 1 point, and then multi-episode is worth 2 points. Next, we have 3 points for our multi-season supporting character development. And this, of course, is we learn more about Gaius's past. We learn that He was engaged to Alice. He became the court physician. He saw her name on the list of those to be purged. He removed her name from the list, allowed her to escape, and has never forgotten her since. And that's just a brief little bit of history for Gaius. And then we, of course, had 4 for world building, which is that manticores exist, that they exist within a different realm from reality, and they are creatures of the old religion that are from a source of evil, so they're not good creatures, and that the box that the manticore was coming out of was actually a portal to this other dimension where the manticores live, and that their poison is made more potent or made potent by their magic. So killing the manticore and cutting it off from its life source in the other dimension also cures the poison, as the thing that makes it poisonous is the magic of the manticore, which will no longer be there when the manticore is dead. And that brings us to 10. However, there was obviously some negative messaging and behaviors that happened, and that all has to do with multiple incidences that are all related, so I'm only taking -2 points, but obviously back in the day we had Gaius tampering with evidence or with the arrest lists, which would probably be illegal. Had he been found out, he probably would have been purged himself. Then there's him knowing that magic was involved and lying to the king about it in order to protect Alice. And then, of course, there's the fact that he harbored Alice and once again continued to lie for Alice. And then there is the fact that he helped Alice escape from the prison, all of which are negative messaging or behaviors, which in the context of the show are not actually that negative, but we look at this objectively, and just objectively, those are things you should not do. However, in the context of the show, they're all forgivable because it was to save a life from, an injustice. Either way, though, it is still bringing us to an 8 out of 10 episode. And that brings our mostly objective ranking to, in first, The Tears of Uther Pendragon, The Eye of the Phoenix. This episode comes in third, Love in the Time of Dragons, Goblin's Gold, The Crystal Cave, The Changeling, The Castle of Fiorin, and then Gwaine is still in 8th place. Next up, of course, we have my personal ranking. And I liked this episode. I thought it was a cute episode. I liked that Gaius got his own little love story that wasn't with a pixie maid, with somebody that he used to be engaged with. We get to know a little bit more about his history, find out that, he was a person, not just an old guy. At one point, he had love, he had friends and family, and so on and so forth. So I thought that was nice. Alice was a nice character. It was nice to see their interactions together. However, most of the main characters were very not seen in this episode. Merlin was kind of a background, the suspicious one, but not really seen much. Arthur was only seen next to Uther's bedside and also bullying Merlin on the training grounds a couple of times. Morgana, Gwen, they weren't even in there. Uther was there only to be poisoned. So it was very much Gaius and Alice centric, which again I thought was nice because we did learn a lot more about his past. There were some comedic moments when Merlin goes to look up what a manticore is. He at first is found by Joffrey, who then, basically tells him, oh, well, if you're trying to see a manticore, that's a myth, a legend. You're not going to see one, so sorry. Then he sneaks back at night, and because of his clumsiness, ends up making a noise which wakes up a sleeping Joffrey. And when he wakes up, Merlin uses his magic to make things float around him, and then tells him that he's dreaming. And the look of glee on this guy's face was amazing. I thought that was one of the funniest moments in the episode. And then, of course, we have the bullying of Arthur, which technically also could probably count towards that -2 points for negative messaging or behavior. He kept throwing things or hitting Merlin with things in order to practice because, you know, rather than use a stagnant, like, training dummy, he decided to use Merlin with a shield to, hit him with a mace, throw a spear at him. Even jousting made him hold the ring. So ultimately, I did find that funny, but also it was a little bit mean. And I liked the episode, but it wasn't a favorite because it did miss a lot of like the favorite characters. So I gave it a 7 out of 10, which I felt was fair for what it was. And so Goblin's Gold is in first place. The Eye of the Phoenix, the Changeling, the Tears of Uther Pendragon, the Crystal Cave. I put this one in sixth place, Love in the Time of Dragons, and then Gwaine and the Castle of Furin are at the bottom. Bringing us now to our mostly objective ranking, and Season 2 had a score of 70.83%, Season 1 at 69.23%, Season 3 so far 56 out of 110. On the personal side, Season 2 had the same score on both the mostly objective and personal, and that was 70.83%. Season 1 came in at 66.92%, and Season 3 now has 57 points out of 110. With that, we've now rewatched and ranked Merlin Season 3, Episode 8, Love in the Time of Dragons. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.